Hiya. Today we're going to look at Sonnet 43 by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. So can you turn to page 11, please? Okay, we're going to follow the same process as normal. Create a mind map or bullet pointed list of any connotations or associations linking to the poem's title. Use questions to guide your thinking. Pause the video now and spend about 1 or 2 minutes completing this task. Okay, hopefully you've realised that you've come across the word sonnet before within Shakespeare when we've looked at Romeo and Juliet, when Romeo and Juliet almost speak a sonnet together as lovers. And we have looked at other sonnets before, so thinking about a love poem. And you might notice that 43 is a number, suggesting there might have been other sonnets, maybe all together. So lots of different sonnets focusing on maybe a similar theme. So would you need 43 sonnets on the same theme? Maybe this shows something of maybe devotion or obsession. So thinking about that and how you might be able to apply this to the poem later. Really quickly, I'd like to see if you remember any of the conventions of a sonnet. So how many lines does a sonnet have? And what is iambic pentameter? We need to pause the video and make notes on this. Iambic pentameter, you should know from Shakespeare, and we've looked at things like iambic pentameter and tetrameter within other poems. And think about the lines. Think about a romantic day in February. Okay. If you figured out 14th February, help keep that in your mind, then absolutely fantastic. An iambic pentameter, it's 10 syllables per line, unstressed and stressed. So the penta 5, so dun 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 dun, like a heartbeat. Here is some more key terminology that you're going to be using some of this with the poem we're looking at today, but not all of it. So if you have a revision book or a place to make notes, it would be good to jot down some of this key terminology so that you can use it again later. And don't forget to put it into your own words so you understand it a little bit better. Okay then, so Sonnet 43, what is it all about? I'd like you to read through the poem and write a brief summary of what you believe the poem is about. So read through it and then write 1 or 2 lines about what you think the poem is about. Okay, and as with all the poems, taking it a bit deeper, look at these images and then reread the poem. Or if you click on the link in the description, you can hear the poem read to you, and there's also some images within that to help you, and then write down what you now think the poem to be about. So what is it all about? So the sonnet expresses the poet's intense love for a husband to be. So Elizabeth Barrett Browning has written these poems for Robert Browning, but only for him. And within the poem, she asks a question and then she answers it, listing all the different ways she loves him. So it goes from abstract to domestic, and it even talks about after death. A little bit of context. Sonnet 43 is one of the sonnets from the Portuguese. So these are a number of poems composed during Elizabeth and Robert's love affair and shortly before their marriage. So she doesn't actually show these sonnets to her husband until after they are married. So they're very intimate, they're very personal. Again, pause the video and make notes on any of this that you think is relevant. A little bit more context. Some context about Browning's life. This last little bit I want to draw your attention to. Elizabeth's husband, so Elizabeth Barrett Browning's husband, appears as a saviour. He saves her from her tyrannical father. So father's a bit of a tyrant. He wasn't a nice man, and Browning saves her. So make some notes on the relevant contextual information and thinking about the kind of love you might have for somebody who saved you from somebody else. Okay, going into analysis now. We're going to start on structure just so we can get our head around it. I'm going to make you think about the key terminology you wrote down earlier, and I'd like you to figure out if this is a Petrarchan sonnet or a Shakespearean sonnet. Clue, look at the rhyme scheme and figure out how you'd split the poem into 2 or 4. Would you split it into an octave, 8 lines, and a sestet, 6 lines? Or would you split it into 4 quatrains, 4 lines, and a rhyming couplet at the end? Use the rhyme scheme to help you out with this. If you figured out it's a Petrarchan sonnet, absolutely fantastic. It is split the octave, the 8 lines at the top with the rhyme in lines A and B, and the sestet down the bottom with the rhyme in lines C and D. The structure of the poem also sort of follows a question being asked at the beginning, and then the rest of the poem, the other 13 lines, are the answer, and each answer is a different aspect of love, and each aspect begins with I love thee. So what I'd like you to do now is see if you can list each of the different aspects of love. So if you look at this first one, I love thee to depth and breadth and height my soul can reach when feeling out of sight for the ends of being an ideal grace. The idea of how much she loves him and how big her soul can reach. It's quite spiritual love. See if you can do this for the other aspects of love. And challenge task, are the aspects different in the octave and the sestet? So pause the video here and see if you can figure this out. Okay, going a little bit further now, I'm going to bring in the terminology volta. So volta is usually a turn of thought or argument. There's no real argument presented here, and the whole poem is all about how much she loves him. So there really isn't an obvious turn. So the only sort of turn I can sort of get out of this is those first 8 lines. The love is spiritual or earthly or domestic, about purity and about free giving. This is the usual type of love we think about when we think of love. But the second half, the sestet, it's almost describes how this love has transported Elizabeth Barrett Browning from the bleakness of her earlier years. So you've got with the old griefs and thinking about her childhood faith, so who she should have had faith in and who might have let her down and upset her, and this man has saved her now, so he's given her a new lease of life, a new reason to love. And the idea of the lost saints, maybe there was a faltering in faith or religion, but this new love brings her faith back. And then you've got this idea of the breath and the smiles and life. So this love is living to her, and it would carry on after death. So she really is almost going over the top with this love, and it's almost verging on obsessive. So make notes about any of this that you can remember. Don't worry if you couldn't get your head around all of that. It's not a problem. All right, then let's have a little look at the language within the poem. So there's a number of themes in the poem. I'd like you to choose 3 themes from the grid that interest you the most and answer the questions relating to this theme. Just because there's one question next to it doesn't mean it's going to be easier. So have a little look through the themes and pick the themes you're actually interested in. So pause this video and complete this task. Checking your understanding. Again, I've used this website. It's absolutely fantastic. Link is in the description. So click on the link and go through and see if you did understand the poem. It's best to have your own personal response to the poem first, because you're going to have a greater understanding before checking it on the internet. And it also means that when you come to unseen poetry, which is one of the questions on your GCSEs, that you won't be as scared about approaching these poems for the very first time, because you're used to doing it with these poems. Okay, final thought. What is the poet trying to say, in your opinion? And email me your answers, and I can add this to the personal response sheet resource I'm making for you to help you out in the future. Thanks, Tim.